Welcome to Healthy Living. I'm Lori Johnson. New data shows 90% of cancer screenings were canceled because of COVID-19 stay-at-home orders. That delay could put lives at risk. Over time, cancer grows and can spread throughout the body. That's why early detection and treatment improves the patient's chance of survival. Missed or delayed screenings could prove catastrophic.
That ends up delaying their opportunity, if they are going to be diagnosed with cancer, to have the benefits of that early detection. And so my sense is that there will be more severe cancer diagnoses.
Now that many COVID restrictions are easing and patients can get the screenings and other checkups, ongoing fear is a problem. Some worry about catching the virus at the doctor's office or hospital, although healthcare facilities take steps to minimize that risk by requiring masks, clean hands, fewer people in waiting rooms, and more.
I would love to be able to see churches really stepping up to the plate, encouraging people to be able to go and get their regular cancer screening done. Needed to be able to have folks that were walking with them through this.
Karen Tripp leads a nationwide ministry of church volunteers trained to help cancer patients draw closer to Christ. She expects a spike in the months to come.
There's going to be a lot of people that we know in our communities that are going to be coping with cancer that are going to need to see how Christ can help them through that. When we look at the studies, there's no question that the impact of faith on a person's physical health is enormous.
And it's not just cancer. Healthcare experts say the lockdown increased the risk of many other health concerns. Paul Strand reports.
SecondOpinionProject.com is the gathering place where doctors are presenting their case for why the nation's lockdown to fight coronavirus has been a medical disaster.
We're looking at an increase in tens or hundreds of thousands of just suicides alone from the increased unemployment.
Cases of depression or drug abuse that were in check have gotten worse. We're seeing that all over the country, every town, every city.
They say of coronavirus,
the message has been disseminated that this is some terrible infection that is a killer, that everybody is at risk of dying.
10 times as many people die from other things on any given day.
But we know that 99.7% of people that get infected with COVID survive.
The risk of death in children from flu, seasonal flu, is 20 to 30 times higher than that of the coronavirus. And yet we have never closed schools. We have never asked children or teachers to wear masks. In my opinion, this is child abuse. I am absolutely appalled, and I think it makes no scientific or rational sense whatsoever.
We cannot lock up our young generation in the house for the next 12 or 18 months while we're waiting for a vaccine.
First of all, there has never been a successful coronavirus vaccine. Never.
Some 1,200 doctors are involved in the Second Opinion Project. Many tell of people who died because they were too scared to go to the hospital.
He declined because he was afraid he would catch the virus. He basically waited to the last minute. 911 was called, EMS showed up, and he, arrested right there, had CPR and didn't make it.
And as he got weaker and weaker, they didn't know what to do because they were getting constant bombardment from the news saying, stay home, don't go to the hospital, you're gonna get COVID. We coded him for about 30 minutes and he passed away.
Even Dr. Fauci has warned lockdowns could cause irreparable damage.
This is not a money for lives situation. This is a lives for lives situation.
These doctors, representing more than 21,000 years of practice, have even written to the White House to warn of the millions of casualties to come because of the lockdowns.
These and other concerns have some wondering whether the lockdown was a big mistake. Dale Hurd has that.
40 million unemployed. A suicide epidemic. More than 100,000 small businesses shut down permanently, with millions of others at risk. And this is only part of the cost of the coronavirus lockdown to America. But what if the lockdown wasn't necessary? What if world leaders committed, as one writer called it, one of the biggest medical and economic blunders of all time?
From a medical and economic perspective, this may be the biggest unforced error in global history.
Enon Weiss is a Silicon Valley technologist who has crunched the numbers and declared the lockdown unnecessary.
Most of the people supporting lockdowns are still clinging to all old and faulty models, which are now been shown to be incorrect.
We were told initially that COVID-19 might kill millions of Americans, but so far a little over 100,000 have died. New York was the worst-hit city with a 25% infection rate. Yet for residents under the age of 45, almost 100% survived. Epidemiologist Knut Witkowski says the nationwide lockdown and social distancing should have ended in mid-March.
The number of cases going to the hospitals had already been dropped dramatically, and therefore there was no more reason to fear that the hospitals would be overloaded, which, as people have forgotten now, was the only reason for the lockdown.
Witkowski says the correct course would have been to lock down nursing homes and the medically vulnerable and let young, healthy people out to build immunity. Instead, we did the opposite, forcing nursing homes to take COVID-19 patients and locking down perfectly healthy young people. America panicked and destroyed part of its economy. Michigan businessman Eric Keelan, who makes rebar, saw $600,000 worth of business evaporate thanks to Governor Gretchen Whitmer's lockdown policy.
And just sitting here saying, this is a problem, and I'm going to do something about it, because now you're kicking me. You're kicking me right in the teeth.
Keelan reopened and is leading a billboard campaign across Michigan called All Business is Essential. But would the death toll have been a lot higher if there was no lockdown? Sweden did not have a lockdown and had fewer deaths per capita than Britain, Spain, and Belgium. And Sweden's economy remains intact. Most Americans don't even know that two pandemics in particular in the 1950s and 60s were deadlier than this one.
We had the 1957 pandemic that killed more people per capita than this pandemic. We've had the 1968-69 pandemic that killed more people per capita than this pandemic.
Weiss says what was different with coronavirus is that politicians tried to make medical policy and ended up making a lot of bad decisions.
Many people who've recovered from COVID-19 feel like they have a new lease on life and are trying to give that same gift to others. The gift? Their blood, potentially loaded with antibodies specifically designed to destroy the COVID-19 virus.
We have an immune system that was able to fight this off on our own, and that's really, really powerful.
Washington State resident Elizabeth Schneider tested positive for COVID-19 back in February. Her body produced antibodies that got rid of the virus and still remain in her system.
Whatever is in my plasma and is in my white blood cells is extremely useful, both for research but also as a therapy for other people.
That's why she's one of thousands of recovered coronavirus patients donating blood.
Each donation that goes for direct transfusion can probably treat 3 or 4 people. The protocol from the NIH allows us to collect our COVID recovered donors once a week for up to 20 weeks.
In Fort Worth, Texas, lung specialist Dr. John Berg gave a convalescent plasma infusion to his patient whose immune system had not likely produced enough antibodies to deal with the virus.
Patients in need who might be on a ventilator or about to be on a ventilator might be the best candidates to get a little boost in immunity.
Although Chinese doctors report 15 patients who received convalescent plasma were cured, here in America, studies are still underway. Meanwhile, doctors can treat patients on a compassionate use basis.
It could make a world of difference. It could be substantially different. The truth is, we don't yet know. It is an unproven experimental treatment.
In Columbus, Ohio, emergency room Dr. Howard Werman recovered from the virus and donated his blood, which has been given to critically ill patients there. University of Chicago doctors are also testing convalescent plasma on their patients.
They get a transfusion, a single transfusion of the plasma, and then we measure what happens.
They say ideally donors should wait a month after getting better.
The amount of antibody that's against the virus will have peaked at 28 days.
While doctors can't say for sure whether convalescent plasma works on COVID-19 patients, similar treatments proved successful against the Spanish flu and other coronaviruses like SARS and MERS. When we come back, a look at how one company adapted to the pandemic.
On October 1st, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
Administering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place. Go to cbnnewschannel.com to find out how to get the CBN News Channel on your TV all day, every day. CBN News. Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
As businesses reopen, masks are suggested, even required. Abigail Robertson shows us one company trying to make sure we have enough.
Haley Gottlieb's 15-year-old downtown LA apparel factory was one of many businesses indefinitely shut down a few months ago when it was deemed unessential. Thankfully for Haley, when the LA mayor issued a call for mask makers, Smart Tees reopened to answer that call for those who can buy the much-needed product and those who cannot.
The main goal is just to mask as many people as possible and to make sure that there's nothing in the way of getting people masks that they need.
Haley and her business partner knew from the get-go for every mask they sold, they wanted to donate one too. But the need for masks was so great at many community centers, they wanted to do more.
They were getting donations for sure, just not in enough quantity.
With the help of her friend Dave Stone, they came up with the Millions of Masks initiative.
The first thing that struck me was that once masks were mandated in public, that people didn't have them. And a lot of people didn't know where to get them.
Mom works by people going to their website and choosing a city to donate reusable masks to. Haley makes them at cost. Then their nationwide partners distribute the masks to those in need in their cities. Haley thinks for the time being, masks are here to stay.
I think even some of our regular customers who we ship normally just fashion apparel have been adding masks to their collections. I mean, we think it's going to be around at least through the end of this year, possibly into next year.
Haley and Dave believe as people start going back into their offices and returning to normal, it won't just be one mask they need, but multiple, as they should be washed after each use.
Students graduating this year missed out on a lot, but Mark Martin shows us who's trying to fill in the gap.
We've seen how this pandemic put a damper on family celebrations, from birthdays to marriages to senior class milestones like proms and graduation ceremonies. To help lift up members of the class of 2020, residents at the senior living community Westminster Canterbury on Chesapeake Bay reached out with advice and lessons learned from the past.
You are there to learn. Go to every class. I never cut a class while I was in college.
Resident and former teacher Neola Waller chatted with Cox High School senior Alexandria Pisano as part of the program Seniors Celebrating Seniors. By using a birdsong tablet, the video communication tool developed by Westminster Canterbury, the residents safely spoke with the graduating seniors.
What kind of advice did you give her?
Well, having taught seniors for 30 years, I have lots of advice, and your time is too short for me to tell it all. But I had some items. For one, I said, just remember, when you go to college, you will be learning something, and your parents will expect you to graduate with a marketable skill.
Pisano plans to attend Old Dominion University to major in neonatal nursing. She describes Waller, who's 91 years young, as an amazing woman.
As a first-generation college student, it was really hard to kind of figure out what I was expecting to get into. So her adopting me really made me kind of get inspiration on what to expect and how to pursue my career. She gave me really great advice.
And Pisano says what made her relationship with Waller even more special was the fact that Waller taught at Cox High School for 30 years.
I still keep in touch with a lot of my students.
It was just amazing to speak to her, and we had a great relationship, and honestly I feel like we're going to have a forever relationship. I'm going to come back from school and visit her just to talk to her about advice on what I should do in school, because I know I'm going to be lost.
She has a wonderful smile, which I think will be very healing and accepting of her patients. I've loved talking with you.
I know you're giving me such great advice.
When we come back, how some Christians are dealing with the pandemic.
On the home front.
Thanks for joining us for CBN's On the Home Front, where we highlight what the men and women of America's military do to defend our country. CBN honors the men and women in our military with an initiative called Helping the Home Front. It partners with churches across the country to meet the needs of their military families, from repairing homes to wiping out medical bills for wounded veterans.
On the Home Front, Tuesday morning at 10:30.
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government.
My focus has been trying to really make sure we have the future leaders we need for the bench and the bar and for society generally.
You'll learn from highly credentialed leaders who are current and former judges, distinguished scholars, and ACLJ counsel.
I'm so glad I chose Regent. The relationships here have been amazing. The faculty have been amazing. Not everybody's called to the same thing when they leave law school, but they're called by a God who has a purpose for their lives, and He is going to use that education to make a difference in the world.
Regent will prepare you to be a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer. To start your rewarding law career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July. Apply today.
The COVID pandemic is challenging for all of us, but it's in hard times that people often grow spiritually. Once again, Paul Strand.
Good Friday. In this recent digital simulcast about finding good things during this painful pandemic, Focus on the Family's Jim Daly talked about C.S. Lewis's saying that God shouts to us in our pains.
And this pandemic has been a time of pain, and I hope we can hear God shouting in it.
Then he shared 6 things he believes God is shouting. 1, God is with us right now.
Lean into Him. He'll never leave us nor forsake us.
2, this isn't the end of the world. There's a new day coming. 3, God makes all things new, can help us form new good habits.
My wife Jean and I have been spending more time in the morning reading the Word and praying together.
4, even if death overshadows us, heaven is real and awaits us.
Scripture says that our lives are but a vapor, but we can't lose sight of what's coming after this life.
5, it's important that we not forsake God in this hard time, blame Him and turn our back on Him. And 6, God loves us. The Benham brothers appeared with their usual cheeky humor.
I'm David. This is my little brother, Jason. He's been in my shadow for almost 45 years now.
But they spoke solemnly about people of faith standing up for rights that are sometimes threatened during this pandemic, like free speech or the right to assemble. David himself was recently arrested for sidewalk counseling outside an abortion clinic.
First, it's our responsibility to be a voice for the voiceless. But now all of a sudden, our rights are being threatened. And I was like, I'm not going to budge. And they ended up arresting me. How do you redeem a crisis? You continue to be faithful in the midst of it. That's how you do it.
So pass it on.
Create an appetite in your kids for the things of the Lord. So when we were kids, we woke up every morning, we caught our dad and our mom, both of them, our dad and our mom, either reading their Bibles or praying in front of the couch.
And stand.
We're American citizens. We have rights, and those rights are not given by government. They're given by God.
The coronavirus has redefined the way we worship. Wendy Griffith takes us to Boat Church.
It was a picture-perfect morning. For those torn between being outside on a beautiful summer day and going to church, Boat Church here at the Narrows at First Landing State Park in Virginia Beach offers the perfect solution.
For God so loved the world that He gave His one and only Son.
Several local churches are taking part in Boat Church. Sunday, Adam Cates, the preacher at Big House Church, gave a message on God's love.
In the Gospels, Jesus preached some of His best messages from a boat. There's a reason people come to the shore, come to the beach, or love to get out on their boat. There's something that connects us in the spirit through water.
Organizer and former Governor Bob McDonnell says the inspiration for Boat Church came from a similar experience he had at Smith Mountain Lake, Virginia.
We kind of copied the Smith Mountain Lake Boat Church idea and started the planning about a year ago. We think this is just a providential that the planning ended up with this concept to start in the middle of a pandemic when people were looking for a way to be together to worship.
Boat Church plans to meet every Sunday at 10 a.m. at First Landing State Park until September 6th.
When we come back, the story of a nurse answering the call of God during this pandemic.
Too often, we carry baggage from our past. You know what it's like. It affects everything and everyone in our lives. It's always there, weighing us down and keeping us from achieving true happiness. But do you know God never meant for us to be trapped in the past? You can be free of your baggage. Learn how God's forgiveness leads to changed lives and new beginnings. Call the 700 Club.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5 Wednesday night at 9:30. Tikkun Olam.
This is our nature as a country.
To make the world a better place.
Literally, we felt the earth shaking.
The Christian Broadcasting Network presents To Life, how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
This film needs to be seen by everyone.
I was in tears.
Now you can own the inspiring documentary To Life on DVD.
There is blood on our hands if we know and we walk away.
I'm so grateful that this film was made.
To Life can be yours for a gift of $10 or more. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com.
We know that every minute counts to save life.
It'll bless Israel, but it'll also bless all the friends of Israel.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are making the world a better place. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com to get your copy today.
A Virginia nurse responded to the need for healthcare workers during the height of the COVID crisis in New York City. But what makes her story unique is how she got to the Big Apple. Eric Phillips explains.
Rachel tells me she felt led of the Lord to answer the call, and about 2 weeks after she accepted a temporary position at a local New York hospital, she and her husband set out, not by plane or by car, but by their boat, appropriately named Turning Points.
It wasn't a leisurely vacation sale, I'll tell you that. And it was just a big leap to mobilize and to take that step of faith.
And without much hesitation, Rachel and her husband jumped into the deep end, almost literally.
It didn't take but 10 seconds before we were both kind of, full bore.
Rachel was working as a pre-op nurse in Lynchburg, Virginia, when attention shifted to the pandemic. As elective surgeries were canceled, she wasn't really busy. Around that time, recruiters started calling to see if Rachel would be interested in helping in New York, especially since she had worked as an intensive care nurse.
And I think the Lord just really put on my heart, like, I've prepared you for this. You have the skills, the training necessary. You're not being utilized where you are. You should go.
Looking back, the 34-hour trip that landed them in New York on Easter Sunday may have been the easy part compared to NYU Langone Hospital in Brooklyn.
Things, especially in the hospital, were just chaotic. There were so many patients, so many people dying, and it was just a really tough environment to walk into. I tried to prepare for mentally, but it's something you just can't really prepare for until you actually see it with your own eyes.
I was underprepared, especially in the beginning of their tenure, for how they were going to be emotionally handling the time in the hospital.
They say one thing has made the difference: God's grace.
The unending grace that he gives so I can give my patients, and the love so I can give my patients. If I get sick, Lord willing, I'll probably be okay. But even if I'm not okay, no matter what happens, to God be the glory.
I'm very proud of her humility in that act of service and her willingness to take that on. We're here because we believe that God has us on this planet to be disciple makers.
Rachel's contract has her in New York until the middle of June, and it could be extended if necessary. She says she's okay with that. When she returns home, she plans to complete her nurse practitioner's degree, and then it's on to the next adventure.
That's all the time we have for this edition of Healthy Living. I'm Lori Johnson. We'll see you again next time.